get to 50 years with a single model of car, you don't screw it up, because the whole world's watching. Let's see how Ford handled the limelight as we get our first pretty deep drink of the 2015 6th generation all-new Mustang. And check the tech. Compared to the outgoing model, the new car is lower, about 1.25 inches at the roof, but almost 3 inches so at the rear deck. It's wider, and the rear wheels have been pushed out about 3 inches. That makes for sexy Coke bottle hips. Up front, of course, you've got to have a long hood, and you've got that shark bite mouth. Coming to the rear, you've got the fastback roofline. They call this a unified DLO, or daylight opening. In other words, they made the B-pillar black, so it kind of visually goes away. That leads to the rear, which is still a short deck. And out around the transom, you've got those signature 3 vertical bar sequential taillights, and they're very much tilted forward this time, more than any other Mustang. Now, in terms of engineering and technology, there are a slew of firsts on this 6th generation Mustang. They're at least first in terms of ever being on a mainstream Mustang model. A turbo engine, first since a limited production SVO in the early 80s. Available 4-cylinder engine, first time since the lamented Mustang II. All the new Mustangs have independent rear suspension. The automatic cars have paddles for the first time. Mustang gets My Ford Touch for the first time. And for the first time, this car is being marketed heavily overseas. Europe, Asia, 120 markets total. Yet they didn't shrink it down to fit on tiny streets of ancient cities. They went out there and said, "This is a Mustang, deal." Now inside, the technology's familiar. It's just new on a Mustang. My Ford Touch, you could never get this in a Mustang before. You can get it with or without navigation. And to be fair, they've taken this highly maligned system and gotten it at least to good, if not excellent, in terms of its interface and touch response. So it's no longer a black mark. Notice some of the switchgear, though. It's not all touch in this car like some previous Fords. Volume and tuning are metallized physical knobs, thank you. Toggles are new in a Mustang. They say it's an aircraft thing. I say it's just a traditional sports car thing. This one here is new in a Mustang. It lets you select one of 3 steering feels. Driving modes. This guy gets it new for the first time. A normal, a sport, a track, or a foul weather mode. A storage bin here with USB. Believe it or not, Mustangs didn't have that before. They've been able to thin things out. I swear the cowl is lower, because this thing used to feel like you were driving a tank before. It's come down with the classic dual Mustang brow, particularly 67, 68 hearkening here. They put an airbag in the glove box lid. They say they were able to lift this whole area up 3 inches. It cures a lot of claustrophobia. Ditto for the way they've carved out this center console and pushed these speakers flush into the door panels that they should be, but weren't. Now, when we got this car, I specifically asked Ford to give me the 2.3-liter inline-4 engine and an automatic transmission, because that's where the heart of the technology lives in the new Mustang. This guy is a twin-scroll turbo, Ford's first, and it's also direct injection. That's part of the EcoBoost technology, and highly variable valve timing. We're looking at a 6-speed manual as your base gearbox, but as I mentioned, I've got the 6-speed automatic, which has paddles on the wheel for the first time in a Mustang. The numbers: 310 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. Rear-wheel drive, obviously, though Ford says their stability control is so good and so smart, this will tackle foul weather pretty well. The car weighs a little over 3,500 pounds in this 4-cylinder automatic configuration. That's about 200 pounds more than a previous V6 with the same transmission. That weight gain is generally attributed to the adoption of a more complex, independent rear suspension. We'll find out if the weight's worth it in a moment. In a manual, you're going to get 2231. With an automatic, you lose one on the city, pick up one on the highway. Now, a lot of folks are going to say, wow, how's the engine? I'm going to say, wait a minute. First thing I notice is actually the suspension. Normally in a Mustang with a live solid rear axle, you're going to come across one of these LA Canyon roads like this with far from perfect pavement, and you're going to hit a little divot, and the whole rear end's going to do an Irish jig and end up way out there somewhere. But that didn't happen. This car just stayed in place. That's a miracle for a Mustang. The ride quality is very nicely done. Almost too soft, to be honest. It's a little cush. I'm told our car has a base suspension, so look for a sportier upgrade if you buy one to level things out, but hopefully not kill the ride quality. Now onto that engine. Turbo lag is very minimal. It's there, it's a turbo. It kind of has to be. But it's pretty well managed. I got to give him credit for that. I do find myself running the gears, though, to dig it up out of its taller gears and make sure I've got all the response I want. It's a little bit out of sorts with the way a Mustang is supposed to have immediate crack of the throttle response. And one more thing I want to call your attention to on this guy. is really nice cabin airiness. The greenhouse, as they say in the biz, is pretty good. Used to be in a Mustang, you felt like you were buried in your coffin and had a steering wheel that they left you with. Okay, after just one day with the new Mustang, here's kind of my overall take on it. First off, the styling is, to my eye, a home run. It's a great looking car, and I think it'll remain that way 5 or 10 years from now, and folks won't be saying, oh, that looks so 2015. That's the kiss of death. In terms of engines, I think this EcoBoost 4 we have today is gonna be my winner, even after I drive the 6 and the V8. We know those engines. This one's impressing me for its tech prowess, efficiency, and power. Speaking of tech, inside the car no longer has to make excuses for being years behind the industry. That's good. And I think we've got a real livable car here. 2 key things: good ride quality, thank you independent rear suspension, and a lightened up cabin with more airiness in it. You don't feel like you're driving a tank anymore. In sum, I think Ford's done their homework and done it right. We'll get one of these in for a longer period though, a little later, and give you our further impressions.